Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's session about analytics for journalists. My name is Rochelle Solomon, and I am the News Lab Teaching Fellow for Canada. And there are teaching fellows just like me in countries all around the world. And over the past several weeks, we've all been hosting these live sessions about different online tools for journalists. And it's all part of this series called GNI Live. When we're not doing this, we also hold training sessions directly with newsrooms in our respective countries and regions. And these touch on subjects similar to the GNI Lives, like things that are popular right now, at least in the sessions I'm doing, advanced search and story discovery tips and tools, the same for verification for images and video, visualization tools, very popular lately. So those are just some of the topics that we touch on. If you're interested in setting something up for your team directly, simply send me an email. You have my email address here. With me in Canada, these types of training sessions are available in both English and in French. And just below my email address, you're going to see the website where you can register for the final session that's part of this round of the public GNI Live series. So the series you're watching now. So go check that out. This is what that site looks like. And by selecting on demand or past in the menu on the left-hand side of that web page, you'll also be able to watch back to previous sessions about topics like what you're seeing on the screen now. So we did a session on resources for reporting on the COVID-19 pandemic, tools for freelancers, but really for anyone working in journalism. We did a session about Pinpoint and other investigative tools. And then just 2 weeks ago, maps for storytelling, which was really fun and popular. So you can go check those out on that website. And there is another training resource from the News Lab. It's this website, g.co/news training. And what's different here is that these courses are all self-guided. And these range in topics, I won't list them all, but you can check them out, like environmental journalism, verification, data journalism. There are also some specific courses that touch on tools, just focus on a tool itself. So like Pinpoint or Google Earth. I pulled an example here with Google Trends. So you go on the site, you click through the different lessons, and it's set up in such a way that you have an explanation on one side of your screen and an image on the other that helps walk you through the different steps of that explanation. So in the case of the Training Center website, you can really pick and choose the tools that are most useful to you and just work through the ones that would help you in your work and do so all at your own pace. Now, before we get to today's topic, I thought I'd just put this all in context. You've probably heard this before if you've been tuning into some of the other sessions, but I think it helps situate what exactly we're doing here. So the Google News Lab, the team that I'm part of, it falls under the Google News Initiative. So you might have heard of the GNI before. And my role really focuses on the first of these 3 E's. So to elevate and strengthen quality journalism. If you have questions about the other 2 E's, so evolving business models or empowering news organizations through technological innovation, that's the email address where the whole Canada team can be reached. And by sending us a note there, we'll figure out who's the best person to help you and find you the resources and the answers that you need. So gni-canada@google.com. And honestly, if you're a news publisher in Canada, feel free to write that address with questions anytime. In fact, it is worth mentioning that today's topic does bridge all 3 of these GNI pillars. And today's topic is analytics. And when we're talking about analytics, we are talking about audience data and analyzing audience data. So what does that mean for a newsroom? It could mean using the metrics that are collected by your website to understand who is visiting your site, how often they are visiting your site, and what content they're consuming when they're there, and even details like how they are consuming that content. Are they on a phone or are they on a computer? So I can speak for myself here, but I think I can even speak for the wider journalism sphere. I don't think most journalists choose to go into journalism to explore and analyze numbers. Some do, 100%, especially with data journalism, but I don't think it's the vast majority. I do think that knowing about analytics is important, especially as we talk about and understand more the growing digital space and how journalism is going to continue to grow within that. So what you're seeing here is one of the survey questions from a recent report by the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism with the University of Oxford. And the question here that was asked is, in your experience, where do the best new ideas come from? And you can see along the top of the graph with a 74%, audience and data insights were identified as a key driver in innovation and new ideas. So survey respondents in this case were from 43 countries, from some of the world's leading media companies. And I'm going to actually share a link to this report in the chat now, so you can take a closer look at this and also at any of the other survey questions. There we go. Oh, lulumuku.com is saying most of journalists still don't know how analytics works. And that's true. I believe that's true as well, because we're not usually on the back end as journalists, but let's hope at the end of this training session that everyone at least knows what's available and maybe how to approach things a little bit differently. Thank you for your comment. So when it comes to audience and data insights, which we saw on the survey question and response, so many people and businesses do use Google Analytics. There are other tools for analytics reporting, but what we are going to look at today draws on Google Analytics specifically. So I want to put a little bit of a focus on that. We're not actually, however, going to be looking at a Google Analytics dashboard, but we're going to look at tools today that have been built for newsrooms to better leverage what is available from their analytics accounts. So if you don't have a Google Analytics account set up, or you don't have access to your news organization's account, I do think it's still valuable to know about the data that's available to news publishers. I think this could be useful to you in a future role, or even just to know about what types of information is available, and that these are the types of insights that news organizations have access to and are considering. And not only considering at large, but considering on a daily, hourly, sometimes a minute-to-minute basis. So if you are interested in learning more about Google Analytics as a tool in itself, there is a specific training website. I'll drop it right now in the chat. There you go. A basic Google Analytics account is free. So there's nothing we're going to see today that costs anything to explore. And the analytics we're going to look at, they can be valuable for a news site of any kind and of any size. So equally valuable whether you work with a large daily or with a smaller magazine-style publication. It doesn't really matter. The thing about data and data points that come from Google Analytics or from other analytics sources is that we can certainly look at the numbers and think, okay, that's very interesting, thank you. But the question is, of course, what do you do with that information, and how do you take that data and actually do something with it, like drive more user engagement? And when I say user engagement, I mean visit frequency and visit depth to your website. So what does that mean? That means more visits and longer visits to your website. And honestly, regardless of how you feel about analytics, journalists are writing, they're broadcasting, they're creating content to be read and viewed. So you want to find ways to help people find your content and, of course, keep them coming back. On the business side of things, reader engagement does impact revenue. So whether that's revenue from ads or from any reader direct revenue, like from an example would be subscriptions. So from both the information side and from the business side, a newsroom is interested in building loyalty and building that loyalty with their audience. So the goal of the tools we're going to see today, they're to transform data into action, and specifically for news publishers. Before we jump into the tools, I want to give you a quick example of what I mean when I say transforming data into action. So let's say you have this simple data point to start. You have 100 users on your site. From these 100, you know from your data analytics that 70 use a mobile device and your latency is high. And that means that your site is just taking too much time to load. So right away, we have an insight from a data point. But now we want to act on that. So we have to think about what are the ways to consider to try to solve this problem or this challenge. So in this case, we want to know how we can improve the load time, make it faster. And here are some of the recommendations we can try. So again, the goal is to use the data to improve performance, and that could be very different for your team to another team. But the idea is to take the information you know and transform it into something you can act on. And the main tool we're going to see today, it provides those actionable recommendations. It creates that list for you, all based on best practices across the industry. So you'll be presented with the different actions to try based on your specific data. What you're seeing here is a series of free tools that have been built to help news publishers optimize and understand their site data. So News Consumer Insights in the middle. It's called NCI for short, if you hear me refer it to NCI. It transforms data into the recommendations, as I mentioned, all with the hope to grow reader engagement, like we saw on the previous slide. So it's the tool we're going to open together today and just do an overview of the dashboard. And at the end of the presentation, I'll point you in the direction of what to do if you're really interested in learning more in depth about NCI. So you'll find all three of the tools at this site, GOOO.gle/data tools. And before we open the site and take a look at NCI, let's very quickly look at what the other two tools can do. So the first tool is called News Tagging Guide, or for short, we like short form things, NTG. NTG can help you make the most of Google Analytics by capturing the data that is specifically useful to a news publisher. So this has been segmented into the three categories you're seeing on your screen now. What you're seeing here is how the tool has tags, so pre-created tags that you copy and paste directly onto your site to track key metrics. It's totally okay if this sounds complicated. There is a 253-page playbook that explains it in detail. What we're going to see today together is much more straightforward, especially if you don't have any experience putting together or managing a website. But it is worth mentioning before we move on that NTG can be used on its own, but it has been designed as a companion to the other two tools we saw on the landing page, so NCI and RCI. RCI is real-time content insights, and this lets you analyze how your content is performing in real time. So it does what the name says it does. This tool pulls data to show which articles, also which videos are most popular with your readers, if you have videos on your site, and also what broader topics are trending in your region. And there are a lot of other possible insights you can pull from the RCI dashboard, like where your real-time readers are coming from, for example. You could identify trending articles on your site, again, all in real time. Lots of interesting things to play around with in there. But again, we're going to focus on another tool today, NCI, News Consumer Insights. So let's go ahead and open that tool so we can better understand how it works. So here we are on the landing page. We see the three tools we've mentioned: News Tagging Guide, News Consumer Insights, pardon me, and Real-Time Content Insights. As I mentioned, we're going to focus on this middle one, News Consumer Insights. To use NCI, you don't need to install anything on your site or to download anything to your computer. So let's work through things a little bit on this main page. The first thing you're going to see at the top is it says not connected to Google Analytics. And as I mentioned earlier, you do need a Google Analytics account to use this tool. You can absolutely use the free version, or if you have it, the paid 360 version of Google Analytics will work as well. But it is not necessary to have a paid version to use this tool. So right at the top here is where you're going to connect your Google Analytics account to NCI. And you're going to do so using the Gmail address that's associated to your analytics account. When you do that, you're not sharing your info with anyone external. It's only for you. And as soon as you close the window, the information will be cleared. So we're going to proceed with the demo data that's loaded into the tool. This way, you can revisit this page later and easily follow along with what we're going to see together if you'd like. So let's continue looking around. On the left side of the page, we have this menu of options, actionable recommendations, reader engagement, reader revenue, and video insights. Let's explore the landing page, actionable recommendations, and we'll come back here later and see what the other options can do. You'll also see along the top of the page, we can select a different time frame if we want, 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. We'll leave it at the last 30 days for now. And I think the main thing everyone's probably noticed so far are these three main categories, these three boxes: your casual readers, your loyal readers, and your brand lovers. So the tool has essentially applied a funnel to our imaginary publications data and has filtered out these three categories. And if you hover over each category, you can see how each type of reader has been defined. So let's start with your casual readers. The casual reader is someone who has visited your site once over the last 30 days. Your loyal readers who have visited at least 2 times but less than 14 times over the last 30 days. And your brand lovers, readers who have visited at least 15 times or more over the last 30 days, pardon me. So if you can imagine the tool was connected to your Google Analytics account, the data from your site would be segmented into these three different categories of readers in the same way. Now, if we look on the left side of our screen, we have these cards. They're top line insight cards. And this is to help you further make sense of the data that's loaded into these three categories. So if we read this one, it says, your loyal readers and brand lovers represent 20% of your audience. Okay, so your loyal readers and your brand lovers, 19 plus 1, that's 20% of your total audience. They drive 80% of your page views. So again, loyal readers, brand lovers, 60, 20, they represent 80% of your page views and 85% of your ad revenue. So ad revenue, 65, 20, they represent 85% of your total ad revenue. I want to quickly mention, if you don't have a Google Analytics 360 account, this bottom line of total ad revenue, it will disappear. But you can use the gear icon, the settings button at the top of the page, and you can input an estimate, and then that would be calculated in this space. All right, so back to our top line insight, which recommends that we should grow your reader engagement to push your casual readers down the funnel. So in this case, a very small percentage of the audience over the last 30 days is actually driving a high value of page views and ad revenue. So the summary card that appears on the left side of the page, it helps you better understand the insights that are populating from your analytics account. Now, this is all very nice to know, but as I said before, the big question is, how do we actually act on this information? How do we grow our casual reader to become a loyal reader, to become a brand lover? So this next section just below does just that. It gives you different recommendations to try. So if we scroll down here, we see recommendations to help improve reader engagement, and we have 8 different recommendations. Now remember, this section is going to be customized based on the data from your analytics account. So you might see the number 4, the number 7, you might see 8. Any number will populate based on your data. This is also going to be customized to your needs over time. So if you make changes to your site, this number of recommendations could change. Let's take this one, for example. Your page load time is high, which limits your reader visits. If we click here, we see that the tool is looking if your website speed is above or below 3 seconds to load a page. So if you improve this, the recommendation would essentially also disappear. Now, not all the recommendations that populate may apply to you perfectly. Remember, it is a tool meant to be useful for a wide range of users. So if there's a recommendation that doesn't exactly match your needs, you can consider it and move on to the next one. But let's look at one of the recommendations a bit closer. Why don't we click on the first one, which says your newsletter traffic is low. So it opens this card, and right away we have a list of recommendations, in this case 4 recommendations that we can try. Also making recommendations for both desktop and mobile, which is of course very important. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, there is an image to help illustrate the points that are outlined on the left. There's also this Learn More button, and when we click on the Learn More button, there we go. It redirects us to the NCI playbook. And as you can see, it's open directly to a chapter that provides additional information about, in this case, newsletter best practices. First, what you're going to see is a repetition, a bit of what we saw in the live tool together. And then you'll notice there's even more detail available, like right here, for example, comments and observations. Here there's a link out to Facebook instant articles, allowing you to easily implement easy email sign-up boxes. So it takes you right to that. So the playbook is, as you can see here, a 50-page PDF document. You can consult it at any time. It's really a complement to the online tool with more examples, which we can see here, best-in-class examples, and also case studies. I'll drop a link directly to the playbook in the chat, so you have it there as well. There we go. Okay, if we go back to the NCI tool, I also want to point out that in our menu on the left at the top of the page, if you look at help/playbook, there's also a link directly there for the playbook. So there's lots of different ways that you can access that PDF document. Now, if we scroll down further, so before we were at 8 recommendations to help you improve reader engagement. If we scroll down past those, we end up with recommendations to help you improve reader revenue. So reader revenue versus before we were looking at reader engagement. And in this case, we have 7 recommendations that were generated. Remember, again, this will change based on your individual analytics account data. Then, if we scroll further past these recommendations, which are in the same format as the others, we have another category, recommendations to help you capture better data. Here you're going to see NTG, the news tagging guide we saw very quickly earlier. So this comes into play in this section. And each time you use a tag, it will generate a report. So here NCI is showing you what types of tags you should consider for your site based on your analytics data. Now, what you might have noticed so far is that we haven't seen a lot of numbers. We've seen a few, but again, the focus has been on these actionable recommendations. And in fact, we still have that tab selected in our original menu on the left-hand side of our screen. And now that we've been through the actionable recommendations page, we can see in our menu that reader engagement and reader revenue, these two other tabs we can select, are also the categories that we saw under the actionable recommendation section, where we had 8 and 7 recommendations for those categories. So these can all be explored in more detail here now. So you can go deeper into the numbers. If we click on the reader engagement tab, you'll see what I mean. So you see the same 3 categories of readers that we saw before, but whereas before on the actionable recommendations page, we had just a few percentages, here we have multiple data points that are generating under each funnel. So if we look at them a little bit more closely, in this first category, we have the reader persona for all 3 of our types of readers. So we're seeing information like the gender and age range, the type of device the user is accessing your site with, and where they're coming from. In this case, we see Facebook as a main driver. Again, this is across all the different types of readers that this information is going to generate. In the section below, we have the number of readers and page views, and these red arrows indicate the difference from the previous month. In this next section, we have average ad revenue per user. Again, ad revenue is only going to be calculated here if you have a Google Analytics 360 account, and if you don't, again, you can generate an estimation by using the little gear settings button up here and setting a goal. And then you will get an estimation as part of the tool. In this final section, we have user behavior, things like visits per reader, pages per visit, average length per visit. Again, it's all over the last 30 days. You'll notice, like we had on the actual recommendations tab, we here have top line insights as well, running along the left side of our page. And these are, again, here to guide you through the information that's populating in these 3 categories. There is so much to explore here, but I want to point to one final section under this reader engagement tab. If we continue to scroll down, it's this graph here that I think is really interesting, and even interesting on the journalist side to know where your readers are discovering your articles or your videos or your audio. So on this graph, when you hover over the different circles, you're going to have data that populates, and it's going to show you where your readers are coming from and how many or what percentage are coming from each traffic source. Down here with Facebook and Twitter in this case with our imaginary data, they're generating a lot of traffic, 29 and 28% respectively. On this axis over here, we have ARPU. ARPU is the average revenue per user. If you're not using Analytics 360, instead of ARPU, you're just going to see pages per reader here. So in the case of this imaginary publication, we can see that newsletters are a really important driver when it comes to revenue per user, or how many pages are being read per user, even if they represent a smaller traffic source. And we can see that outlined here on the top line insight. Newsletters and push notifications, here are the push notifications, they're among your most valuable traffic sources. You should invest in signing up more readers to each. So again, links out to even more recommendations based on the data that's populating here. So if you're starting with analytics and you've never played around in this arena before, starting with the actionable recommendations tab is a really good place to get used to how this type of thing can work and how it can affect your daily work and what you do with your journalism as an outlet and as a team. If you want to see, oops, let's just make sure I've got the right slides up. There we go. If you want to see examples of how these tools have helped different news publishers, all you're going to do is scroll to the bottom of the main website, and you'll find different case studies to read through. And you'll also be able to find, as we saw, the case studies published as part of that PDF playbook as well. And if you are really interested in discovering more about this type of analytics, beyond just playing with them yourself, there is a program called NCI Shift, and it guides news publishers through the different components and elements of the tool. So a first cohort of Canadian publishers just finished the program. 2 different groups went through, one in English and one in French. And if you're interested in joining a future cohort of Canadian news publishers that will go through the program together, I'd encourage you to just send a note to this email address to express your interest. So gni-canada@google.com. Say you're interested in more information about the program, and identify which publication you belong to, and someone will get back to you to let you know when the next series will be running. So as you can see on your screen, the program is spread over 2 months, but it actually only involves 2 90-minute sessions per topic. It is all free, and as part of this, you do get to work closely with the Google NCI leads, as well as the other publishers who sign up. So, I wanted to mention as well, it is product agnostic. So like we saw, a Google Analytics account is required, but the recommendations aren't about pitching Google products. So we saw the newsletter example was a top recommendation through several things I clicked on in the demo, but Google doesn't have a product for newsletters. So it really is a product agnostic session, or sessions, I should say, since there's 2. And with that, we are at the end of today's session. As I mentioned earlier, you are welcome to rewatch this session or any of the sessions I've presented as part of this series you're watching now, the GNI Live series. It's all at this website. And this is also where you should register for the upcoming session, which is going to be a verification challenge. And just so you can't lose it, I will drop this link in the chat right now again. And please feel free to get in touch with any questions you might have, or as I mentioned at the beginning, to book a training session for your newsroom. Of course, the training sessions that are, one-on-one with newsrooms, they're all virtual for now, but get in touch by email and we can discuss what makes the most sense for your team. So which topics might be most of interest, the length of the session or of the sessions, if there are several to set up. So here's how to get in touch with myself, other members of the team, and we really do encourage you to reach out. We're here to help and to try to help and to get the conversation going. So that's all from me. Thank you again for watching, whether you were here live or on demand. And I hope to see you next time. Bye.